Today's interview is with Matt Corbin. Matt, welcome. Nice to see you. Can you give us a bit of an overview of your career to date so that we can understand where your background comes from?
Yeah, I'll do the short, simple version. So I was very fortunate that, I guess, 23 years ago, I sort of fell into the oil and gas industry a little bit by chance. I'd come out of an engineer, or was doing an engineering degree and needed industrial placement, and found a Subsea controls organisation based in London at the time, which they gave me 2 industrial placements. So that was me getting into the industry as an engineer. Soon realised that I was probably more focused on the delivery side of projects rather than the pure sort of technology play and sort of creating new things all the time. That may be not what you want to hear with these opinions, but and so went into project management, account management, did some financial training, and went into operational leadership. And I guess the last 10 years of my career have been about leading large companies, predominantly here in the UK, but also on a global basis in terms of P&L leadership, but also product development.
Excellent. Right, well that's a bit about you and a bit about where you've come from, so that's all good. I think what we'd now like to do is to talk about what your view is for the technologies that are needed in the future. So just to give that some sort of categorization, let's talk about that in terms of life of field stuff, supporting the existing infrastructure stuff, and we'll come to talk about stuff that enables future oil and gas field production. So let's start with the life of field, and we could talk about the long-term aspirations and the short-term, if you could.
Well, and I think I'll start with my basic premise for what I think the industry needs to do going forward.
Right.
And that's really focused on 2 areas. One, in terms of that CapEx piece, we've got to have sustainable cost reduction. We've got to be able to deliver successfully at a much lower cost base than we do today. And secondly, then from an OPEX or potentially a brownfield thing, we need to focus on enhanced recovery. Right. We need to get more out of the assets that we have today. And so, I'm not the engineer, the technologist that's going to come up with the new ideas, but I think those are the 2 areas that we should be focused on. We need to develop technology that achieves one of those, rather than a nice to have. This is fancy. There's lots of money slushing around the industry. Let's try something. So, if I think about enhanced recovery, how do we get more from the reservoir? And I don't mean 1 or 2% more. How do we double the amount we get?
So a subsea well's typically generating about 25%. You can pull 25% of the resource out the hole.
Absolutely.
You want to get that. We need to get that to 50.
Yeah, and I had an eye-opening conversation last week, and it was great because it was with someone from the Oil and Gas Technology Centre who has a blue sky idea about, we're so focused on transporting the hydrocarbon. What about converting it in place? There's technologies today where we're using the heat within pipelines to try and generate power. What about the heat in the reservoir? Is there? I mean, I certainly don't know how to do it. But is there a way of converting that energy source in the reservoir into something that's much easier to transport? I don't know. But it's that sort of thinking where I think we would get an enhanced recovery from the assets that we have at hand. I think we waste so much money on process. We waste so much money by every company, whether it be the supplier or the client, qualifying to different standards. And we have different documentation requirements, different inspection requirements, different qualification requirements. And I think that adds up to about 25% additional cost on a project.
Wow.
In fact, we've done a working group for the Efficiency Task Force led by Steve Duffy, and we demonstrated a 25% cost purely in process.
Yeah.
Now, can we influence that globally? I'm not sure. But I certainly feel it's something that we could do here in the UK and set the ball rolling to say, let's standardise the process. It's easier than standardising the equipment. Let's put the responsibility onto the suppliers for delivering kit. Let them deliver. Let them be responsible for the quality of their own products, and just provide them with functional requirements rather than reams and reams of process requirements. That will have an immediate impact on the cost base, and it'll be sustainable.
In the
But what I would say, if suppliers and especially SMEs know the requirements, then that will foster innovation, because suddenly they don't have to qualify it 10 times for different clients. They can do it once to one set of qualification standards, and then they can sell it to everyone because they know it's qualified for use. You know, we've done separate conversations obviously about test centres.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's the point in the test centre if it's only going to be suitable for one client who funds you doing it that once?
Yep.
You need a test centre that is economic by being able to demonstrate and qualify a product that's then available to all clients. So I do think by focusing on the process and the way of working will also foster innovation, because the economic reward is much easier to demonstrate.
I think the way that we qualify things as a process, because there is no standard approach, is hurting us quite badly, right?
Absolutely.
And so in light of the new, well, it's not so much new, but MER UK, the joining up of the Oil and Gas Technology Centre, the Oil and Gas Authority, is there a means in those three sorts of bodies for a UK kite mark, for want of a better term?
Well, you've used the phrase, and you've probably had the same discussions I've had with the same people, that I think the Oil and Gas Technology Centre as an umbrella organisation for the UK is a perfect catalyst to provide this qualification stamp of approval. Whether we're allowed to call it a kite mark or whatever, I don't know.
Okay.
But I do think if you qualify something to OGTC standards, I think it's fit for the UK. It's fit for the UK, and I think clients and operators should accept that.
And that might become, if it's fit for the UK, because we have generally had an excellent standard of safety and quality leadership, that might be a worldwide kite mark.
Let the world come to us if that's what they want, but let's focus on doing it on our doorstep first.
Right.
I mean, we've had discussions before, and we've had subsea springboards before, and there seems to be a common theme about how do we remove umbilicals? It's something that's been around for 20 years. When we look at brownfield developments, you know, the umbilical is a big cost of that. We look at trees. Trees are a big cost. You know, if you're looking at the capex piece, we've got to find a way of removing the hardware. Now, the umbilical in theory is fairly straightforward with production buoys and with some of the new power sources that are being developed. The tree I actually think is very doable, in the sense that it's quite easy to control wells from manifolds, and you could have a much slimmed down version of a tree sitting on top of a wellhead, or effectively a surface tree on the seabed. You could have something like that. But then it comes into the life of field piece, and actually creating asset stewardship plans that manage a well for its life rather than until it fails. So having something that's planned, a little bit like taking your car to a garage. You know, it's you need the data. Preemptive, proactive maintenance, I think, will give in the long term a lower cost. But then there's another dynamic in there, is the cost of vessels and the cost of intervention today. So the development of AUVs, I think, is absolutely critical. The development of products that have maintenance in mind is key. So if I look at my own background in subsea controls, you know, having a subsea control module with the electronics inside the control module has been great for 30 years. But actually, with the development in electrical and fibre optic connectors today, what we should have is the electronic canister actually sitting on the outside, being able to retrieve an AUV come in with a sort of replacement.
New module.
Well, no, leave the module, because without the module you can't control the valves.
Yeah,
the safety system is hydraulic. Leave that in place so that the well can still run, because you can still shut down if necessary. But you can actually change out the electronics.
So AUVs and replaceable electronics, that's the game changer.
Well, I'm biased from the controls piece, but
we know that.
We know that. Remove the metal, and change the maintenance structure.
Matt, thanks very much for talking to us.
Cheers, Gordon. Thank you.
Great.